Good evening, everybody. This is Jason over at Paydirt DFS. We are back again for another Tuesday model review, and we're also going to take a look at where some of the ownership has landed so far on this Tuesday main slate. Some really exciting things happening right now in our Discord, also, and also over at Paydirt. If you are not a sub, if you have not checked it out yet, please come check us out even for a day. You're going to love the community and you're going to love the models even more. Last night was a night in our Discord where we probably had a collective almost five figures won again. Seems like it happens multiple times a week right now during the MLB season. It's what we do best. So if you want to come check us out, come over and grab a day pass. Come see what we're all about. But without further ado, we're going to dive in to this 10-game main slate. So first, we're going to take a look at our range of outcome models, and we're going to take a look at our scoring percentages for every team today. So as you can see here, the LA Dodgers are very far ahead of everybody else in terms of the ability to score 8+ runs and the probability. When you're approaching a 50% chance that you're going to score 8 runs or more, you just got to consider them, and you got to more than consider them. You got to play them in some way, shape, or form. You got to make it happen. So the Dodgers were a main focus of mine tonight, as I'm sure a lot of people in our Discord also, went to them too. And that game has not started yet, so we are not going to see the ownership on it. Based upon what I'm seeing, it appears that they're going to be not as owned as they probably should have. So that is indicated right here by this LevX column. At their current ownership, they are the second best leveraged team on the slate. Followed by them, it's the Miami Marlins in the same game. It is a bullpen game for the Dodgers, and I think that it's just a little bit of how good the Marlins have been, surprisingly, versus some of the arms in LA. I personally did not get to the Marlins. I do have a one-off or two of them in some of my lineups, but honestly, not really a place I looked tonight. Seattle was a stack that I actually ended up being very heavily invested in. Pre-slate, I wasn't that into them when I started doing my research, just because of the park and just, kind of knowing how much, power is muted there, home runs are muted there. I personally didn't love it at first, and then I started looking into it more, and it was a little tough for me to avoid, and I'm going to explain why shortly. After them, you have a pretty big drop-off to the Tampa Bay Rays, who we had also in the Discord really, really liked. They're really cheap. Boston was after them, who was absolutely nuking the slate. Shout out to Pablo for calling that out and saying that they are the sneakiest stack on the entire night. Turns out so far that may be the case. Then you have the Rockies and Coors, who have some ownership. You have the Mets against Erod and in Citi Field, where 20-mile-per-hour winds are blowing out to left field. And then you have the Angels, which is actually, I was surprised to see them this high up here, because they are going against the chalkiest pitcher of the slate. And we're going to dive into that too. But looking at this, you should have started all your builds with the Dodgers or Seattle if you were following our models. And then the teams you should have avoided the Brewers. The Braves, the Braves and Coors had a very high team total, so if you wanted to play them, you could. It just really would be dependent upon who you played them with. And then also the Rangers, who were cheap chalk, and the Tigers. So those are the offenses we wanted to look at. When we go look at pitchers today, so when we sort by median, up at the top, we have Garrett Crochet, Logan Webb projecting very, very similarly. Freddie Peralta, 18.75, then followed by Bryce Miller, who is the chalk pitcher of the slate, and Taj Bradley. You also have Jacob deGrom down here too, who is also a chalk pitcher. So if you are building straight from the models themselves and you are not using any, as we like to call I know ball statistics, you're not using anything regarding, let me go look at like every individual player splits. If you were going strictly on the matchup here and the projection, this should tell you that there's almost no reason to play Garrett Crochet outside of you want to be different somewhere. From a projection standpoint, you're giving up a lot of salary for relatively the same projection when you could just go from Garrett Crochet down to Logan Webb. And same thing with Peralta, and Peralta is getting punished right now. 2 early home runs against the White Sox. So that right there should lend you to believe, and when we go look at our sims, I guarantee it's going to show us the same thing, that you probably should prioritizing some combo of Logan Webb with Bryce Miller, Taj Bradley. Jacob deGrom also projects well. You had Erod down here. And Reese Olson was a pretty interesting one. He's one guy I wish I got to a little bit more just in large field tournaments. But from a median projection standpoint, that's really the most that's a breakdown of really where you could have gone tonight. When we start by 2x, the most valuable pitchers on the slate, Tyler Gilbert, he's only pitching in an inning or two. You don't want to play him. Herman Marquez, if you want to take on the Braves in Coors Field with one of the worst pitchers on this young season, be my guest. You're a sadomasochist, and you probably shouldn't do that. Jacob Lopez, rookie against the Rangers. I actually thought he was okay in some spots, and if you wanted to load up on big bats, he's striking out a lot of guys in the minors. He's got a 6 slider. He's not a great pitcher, but this iteration of the Texas Rangers is absolutely dog shit. They're striking out left and right, and especially against left-handed pitching. You don't have to go there, but if you were going to really, really super punt, that's probably where I would go. But then you see Taj Bradley here, Bryce Miller, Michael Lorenzen, who, I actually avoided a lot of trouble tonight, surprisingly. Reese Olson, then Logan Webb. So a lot of my focus tonight was on Taj Bradley and Bryce Miller. I wanted one in almost every single lineup I had, or I wanted a combination of one. I played 10 lineups today in the $13 qualifier, and I played one in the $111 field contest today. And I tried to, I have a pretty big lean on these two. And yeah, Taj Bradley ended up not really working out. He ended a lot better than he started. But overall, this is where I wanted to go. I just thought it was too much value to give up. I also have a lot of Logan Webb, but I do not have a lot of Reese Olson, and I might have 1 or 2 DeGrom lineups. As a resident Met fan, I saw DeGrom's best years in New York, so I was really, really high on him, and I'm happy to see that he's starting to put it together. But overall, I just thought it was a little too tough of a spot, and also I want to see him do it one more time before I get there. Also, he's 44% owned. If he's 20% owned, I'm much more inclined to play him. And Bryce Miller just obviously just way, way, way too cheap. So pitching today, that's really a breakdown. If you wanted to look at the pitchers that were the least valuable today, not counting Matt Sauer, who's or I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Sauer, whatever the fuck it's pronounced. Bullpen game for the Dodgers. He's not going to pitch much. And then Sandy Alcantara. So a lot of people have been pushing Sandy Alcantara throughout our industry today, and I know a lot of people do respect him. I don't think he's a gas can. I think he's he was a really good pitcher before his injuries, but now I'm not so sure. And going into Dodger Stadium against that just lethal lineup. Yeah, I want nothing to do with it, and I want to attack him at every which way. Looking at our contest sims today. First, we're going to take a look at the large field sims. I went with above average today, just because I feel like you're playing an 1,100, $101 lineup, and 2,000 entries, it's probably pretty sharp. So here, first you look at the pitchers. So Logan Webb is the highest exposed pitcher, and he also comes in at a pretty decent edge. So it's good to get on Logan Webb in these large field contests today. Bryce Miller is the second highest exposed, a little bit of a negative edge, but he's really cheap, so you can negate that elsewhere. Taj Bradley, Garrett Crochet, and then Jacob DeGrom. Really, really negative edge. When I saw this today, every which way I ran the sims, I wanted to just avoid DeGrom today. And also when I saw it by edge, he is the least. He's the worst edge pitcher you could play today. He has the least amount of edge and negative leverage. He doesn't really help your lineups as much. Versus Logan Webb, Crochet, and Taj Bradley, who do give you the most. When I look at the middling pitchers that don't do anything for your lineup or, don't hurt or help, you have Michael Lorenzen and really Bowden Francis. But if you played Bowden Francis, you just like pain. So you were not playing them today. When I sort by team exposure, you're going to see the Miami Marlins pop a lot here. It's just because they're absolutely raking right now, comparatively to their baselines, they're raking, followed by Seattle, the Dodgers, Colorado, and Texas. When I go look at overall exposures, and this is for pitchers and hitters in large field contest, you're going to see that the largest edge goes to these Miami hitters: Xavier Edwards, Wagman, Augustin Ramirez. Then, your Dodgers, Tommy Edmonds, some Seattle, some more Miami. You have Logan Webb, Dane Myers, and the Dodgers. So really, if you started your builds today in large field with, the Dodgers in Miami, you probably got off to a good start in terms of leverage. If it works out for you, you're probably going to hit a really big prize. When I look at the worst edge on the slate, besides Jacob DeGrom, as expected, it's a lot of Braves. Austin Riley, Matt Olson. You have Wilson Contreras, the chalk, Brewers, Marcelo Ozuna, the Padres. You have Nick Pivetta here, who is getting a little bit of ownership. and more Braves. So this is a really important topic that I think most people need to realize when they're looking at these sims. Just because you see a negative edge on the sims does not mean that they're relatively a bad play. It means at their current ownership, they're undervalued or overvalued. However you want to balance that, and if you can balance it, you probably should. For me personally today, Bryce Miller was just way too cheap in a matchup that he's seeing 7 righties. In LA, they strike out a ton. They haven't been hitting that well. And overall, we like him in that ballpark, and it's a good spot. So 8,200. I don't really care too much about the negative leverage when his alternatives outside of Taj Bradley weren't really anything to write home about. So when I go look at small field sims now, so if you're playing the 250, the 121 here, you're going to see something similar. But when you go to edge here, Eduardo Rodriguez actually pops a little bit here. Not saying you should play him, but in small field sims, he makes a lot of the same builds work because his salary at 8,600. It's similar enough to everybody else that is getting ownership that's why he's gaining that leverage. Then you have Taj Bradley also and some more Reese Olson. I saw this and I wanted to get more Reese Olson. The Astros, even though they are better, they are still not great against right-handed pitching. They're striking out a ton. They only play 1 or 2 lefties in their lineup. Granted, that lefty is Yordan Alvarez. So overall, this is where in small field, you want to start with a combination of Logan Webb probably with either Taj Bradley or, my opinion, Bryce Miller, just way too cheap because even his exposure, he's the second highest exposed pitcher in the sims, meaning he's still showing up a lot in winning lineups. You should consider him. Team exposure, heavier lean on Seattle. Here you see Miami, Seattle, LAD. It's those 3 you should probably find a combo of for small field. So overall, that is what our sims really wanted us to do tonight. That's what our range of outcomes wanted us to do tonight. I also wanted to show something really cool we have over here at Paydirt. This is our matchup masters table. So this is one of our favorite tools here. Me personally, this has helped my game a ton. So we have these different these matchup metrics where we can see which teams are trending for 8+ runs or more. They're the average trend of their matchup, the team that they're playing, how many fantasy points are, how prone are they to giving up fantasy production, the trend in the matchup too, is it trending towards giving up a lot? And then the R2 to op season is how good or how dependent or not dependent they are on facing good pitching. So when I look at Seattle here, number 1 trending team for eight runs or more, they have the best matchup on the slate, and they have the best trending matchup not outside of Atlanta. Right away, all I'm thinking here is Seattle looks great. Oh, okay, and they're also pretty much matchup neutral. That's what this number means. The closer you are to 0, the more neutral they are. They're getting Jack Kachanowicz today. Absolute bum. So right then and there, when I saw that, I had to put myself on a decent amount of Seattle, and I'm a big believer in targeting the right environments and targeting the right parks and the right weather, but this is almost too good to overlook. And also they are not crazily expensive outside of their top 3. So Seattle today was a very good look for that reason. Obviously Atlanta in Coors Field, I don't need to tell you to attack German Marquez. Then we have the Dodgers here. The Dodgers were the other team that I started targeting the most, simply for the fact that price considered, they are on par with the Braves and they could be a pivot from them. We also have the Mets here, and the Mets have really exploded today off a 15-run game. They put up, what do they have so far? They have 8 runs right now to the 7th inning. So, these sheets work. It's not always going to be perfect, but the people in the best matchups are gonna succeed sometimes. And we try to predict that more and more. Boston went nuclear too. If you followed this table alone today, it's very hard for you to not make money. It's very, very hard. So I just wanted to highlight that tool. I think it's one of the best things we have, and it's something that I think really separates us from the rest of the industry. So going on to the slate now, I'm going to show some of my lineups and where I landed. So in the $101, the 50K to first, I decided to go with a Tampa Bay stack with a Atlanta Braves one-off and a Colorado one-off. And I went Nick Allen and Matt Olson with Hunter Goodman. So I wanted to eat a little bit of chalk here because I knew the Rays were not going to be high owned, and I really wanted to play Bryce Miller. I just, when you have limited lineups, you just want to play the pitcher that you think is going to do the best. And if that person is really going to be colossally owned and there's not any pivot you feel strongly about, just play him. And that was what I did. I wanted to play Bryce Miller. By the looks of it, though, I probably have to get off of him. If I can at this point, all my batters have locked, but you can see Hunter Goodman, 10 game slate, north of 10% owned. That's has some ownership. Matt Olson, 19% chalky, and he looks like he's off to an okay start. But really, I need the rest of Tampa Bay to come through. And Cameron Meisner getting subbed out, not good for me. So overall, this lineup is probably dead. Looking at my qualifier lineups now. So went with Taj Bradley, Bryce Miller. Similar build here, but here I went with Colorado. I have a Colorado stack with a Boston Mini. I hit the Boston Mini. Devers, Story, Duran. I need Colorado to come through, and Michael Tolley at 5.2%. Good start. Here, I went with Milwaukee. Milwaukee was a little bit of a chalkier lineup today, or at least projected to be. Turns out it was really Wilson Contreras who was the only one that was really that chalky. And I paired him. I took Garrett Crochet in this lineup, one of my ones where I wanted to pivot up and just see. And Bryce Miller, 8,200, so I'm going to get the chalk there. It's not looking good for this right now, but if Milwaukee starts really exploding, sure, maybe we have a shot. This one too, you have another one. This is the same one I have in the 111. In this one, I have another Milwaukee 5-man with the Seattle Mini. And then I have a lot of PMR left here. See, I played this guy Lopez in the Crochet lineup. I just wanted to get some really big bats in here. And now I could probably pivot off this a little bit. Morel's probably dead to me, but it's all right. And I got some good PMR here in the back end. So I just got to hope things go my way. I have Pivetta in this one. I'm probably just going to pivot off of him. But overall, that's where I landed today. And for you FanDuel people out there, if anybody is watching that does play FanDuel, I do like to get some action in there. So overall, in FanDuel, this is where I landed for right now. Taj Bradley got him sub 10% owned. Honestly, he not a great day. We really need Bryce Miller to probably fail for him to really be worthwhile. But he got the quality start. The 2 strikeouts helped boost his floor a little bit. So I'm not happy about it, but I'll take it. I did hit the Junior Caminero home run in this one. I have a Tampa Bay stack with Atlanta, and I have Tommy Edman to go. Might keep him in, might not. But overall, if Atlanta just does their thing, and if Tampa Bay somehow finds a way to score runs, we could be in decent shape here. This one I have here has yet to really start, but I have a 4-man Seattle with the Dodgers. This one here, Bryce Miller. I went with a Colorado stack and Milwaukee. Milwaukee pricing is much more favorable on FanDuel, and that's why they're pretty highly owned over here. But overall, I knew I was going to get some low-owned leverage with some of the Rockies in the back end of that Milwaukee order, and I wanted Bryce Miller, so that's who I went with. And this last one here, Bryce Miller, Mark Vientos, Big Goose Egg as a one-off, but I do have 2 Braves. I actually got caught here a little bit late with the Luke Raley news, so I had to make pivots as needed. So I just went with Tommy Edman. He fit. I was, between him and Francisco Lindor, and Lindor obviously it's a home run. So naturally, Tommy Edman's going to go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. That's just the way it goes. So that is where I landed. That's where some of the ownership has went today. To take a look at some of the questions we have. So can I walk through Night Slate? Yeah, I can give that a quick look. Hold on one second. Go to the range of outcomes here. All right. So looking at the Night Slate today, first we'll take a look at the scoring percentages. Actually, do we have Night Slate here, Tervo? Okay, there we go. So for the Night Slate, we have big lean on the Dodgers. Pretty good leverage, even though they're going to be owned for the Night Slate with Miami and Seattle. You have the Angels down here who seem to be, neutral leverage, which is pretty interesting. The Giants are pretty negative leverage. Our sheets like Pivetta a little bit, but I just don't think it's a good spot for them in a pitcher's park. And same thing with the Padres. Our sheets really did like Logan Webb. So if I'm playing the Night Slate tonight, which I'm not, but if I was, I'm probably starting with the 5-man of either Miami and the Dodgers, or if I want to be really, really risky, I'm going to take the Angels. most people are not going to tell you this, like most DFS providers, but when you're playing a small slate, sometimes attacking the chalkiest pitcher is just the way you go. It's just something to really consider on those 2 to 3 day 3-game day slates that we get often. That's one of my favorite things to do, and if you happen to catch lightning in a bottle, you're gonna shoot up the leaderboards. So that's something I would do when I go and take a look at pitching for the night slate. Pretty big lean on Logan Webb here and Bryce Miller. That is going to be the combo. You can also go to Pavetta. The other 3 pitchers are really destitute. So if I'm really playing this here, I'm probably going with a combination of Webb and Pavetta, and then I'm stacking the Angels. That's probably what I'm doing in large field GPPs. If I'm playing a smaller field tournament, I'm just going to go Logan and Miller, and then I'm probably going to go some combination of LAD and Miami. That's probably what I'm doing. Let's see other questions. Do you play DK? Yep, I do play DK. I'm predominantly a DK player, but I do like to get my action on a FanDuel. Night slate, you have Webb and Miller, your pitchers. I think Webb and Miller is fine. I think Webb and Miller is a fine combination. It just really depends upon the size of the contest you're in and really what your risk tolerance is. Me personally, if I'm playing a large field slate on a 3-gamer, I'm attacking the chalkiest pitcher at almost every chance I get and just hoping I catch lightning in a bottle. You have seen that this year with teams like the Chicago White Sox who have really, really done things like that. We've seen Tampa Bay, who has been cheap and, going against a chalk pitcher, win a slate or two. So that's what this is all about. In baseball, you don't want to be – it's not about predicting the right outcomes. It's about when you are right, what does that pay off for you? So, like, you don't want to predict the future, but if you do end up being right one night, what's that payoff? So you're in a contest with over 20,000 people. Yeah, if I have one lineup in 20,000 – if a 20,000 person contest, I'm attacking the ever living shit out of Bryce Miller with the Angels. Or if that's a little too, risky for you and you want to take your chances at some of the other offenses, I'm probably doing a 5-man Miami with either a Angels mini or Dodgers mini. That's probably what I'm doing. And nice. Thanks for subbing. Any more questions? All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be back next week for another review. Come check us out over at paydirtdfs.com. My name is Jason. I'm one of the contributors there. Come check us out. Come see the Discord. Come see what we're all about. No question is a bad question. We're a very inviting community. And let's go. And by the way, shout out to everybody who's in the 1500. I heard we might be getting some big trophies tonight. So best of luck to everybody.